You're listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show, where wealth is empowering, purpose is crucial, and high vibes are non-negotiable. And now, here's your host, certified business coach and practical woo strategist, Sarah J. Loureiro.
Welcome to another episode of the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. Today, I want to talk to you about the 5 biggest things that I learned that really expanded my consciousness and also expanded my wealth potential while being on a mastermind in Los Angeles last week. So I am back. I'm sure that some of you guys probably saw my stories for it, some of my posts. I did a lot of B-rolls, so there's probably going to be a lot of reels and videos that are going to come out from the specific trip that I did. I absolutely loved it. I love Los Angeles, like especially Santa Monica, Venice Beach, Marina del Rey, like my favorite spots, honestly. Oh, and Malibu. Can't forget about Malibu, okay? I've been to Beverly Hills. I did Rodeo. I went to West Hollywood. I haven't really been anywhere south, so I haven't been to Laguna or any of those types of places, but I think Santa Monica is like one of my favorite places. I absolutely love the fact that it's a big city that's right on the beach. There's so much amazing food. It's just incredible. So if you share a love of Santa Monica, let me know. I also loved Manhattan Beach. I cannot complain about Manhattan Beach either. But if you don't know anything that I'm talking about, it's totally fine. You need to book yourself a flight to Los Angeles, get to experience the city for yourself. I just really loved it. I think it's such a livable city. I mean, minus the traffic, but I wasn't really driving to work or anything. And it's just, the weather is just so nice, you guys. It's just so nice. So let's talk about the 5 biggest things that I learned from this experience. So it's so interesting because I got back and my team was like, so what did you learn, right? Like, what are we going to implement? What came out of this? And it's so interesting because so much of what I learned was actually so much more internal than it was external. And of course, I already invest in mentors, business coaches, you name it, to help me with business strategy, to help my clients with business strategy. But this mastermind, this meetup that we did was quite different. And so I'm going to go through the top 5 things that I learned from being surrounded with other women who, oftentimes were making over 7 figures and multiple 7 figures in their businesses, right? So let's begin. The very first thing that I realized after speaking with everyone at this meetup that we did is everyone had their ups and downs. In fact, in 2024, almost every single woman who I spoke to said that they had some sort of a dip, be it 1 month, 2 months, a few months in a row where it was like a sliding dip. Everyone experienced some sort of a dip in their income. Now, that doesn't mean that 2024 is a bad year by any means. In fact, I experienced the very biggest month in my business of December of 2023. And I'm currently doing some business processes that are going to expand that even more this year. And things online are really starting to heat up. What is happening though, and what I did realize from this event, is that some strategies are starting to change. And they're starting to change in terms of their effectiveness. But that's not necessarily what I want to talk about here. What I want to talk about is primarily that everyone had ups and downs and everyone normalized their ups and downs. And so that was lesson number 1. Normalize the ups and downs in your business. I'm talking about 7-figure entrepreneurs, you guys, people who are making $1 million a year who were like, yeah, I had a little bit of a slow month last month, but they're not making it mean anything. They're not saying, oh man, now, I've been in business for 5 years and now all of a sudden like it's all dying and, like I'm never going to make money again. No, they understand that there are highs and lows. I even spoke to another friend who's been in business for 9 years, and her and her business partner saw slow growth at the beginning of 2024. They said it's picking up now. So we're in the end of May. Said it's really picking up now, but she was totally unfazed by it, right? Like she wasn't looking for another job. She wasn't saying, oh my goodness, this isn't going to work for me anymore. She was like, no, business was down for a little bit. So we had to deal with that. And now it's back up. End of story. right? Which didn't mean anything about it emotionally. She didn't make it mean anything about herself. She didn't put shame on it. And that is, I think, such a great value of a really successful entrepreneur, is understanding that you have highs and lows, but they don't mean anything about you, right? All right, lesson number 2 that I learned is that there are a lot of strategies that are kind of on their way out in business. And not necessarily on their way out for everyone, but we were really starting to learn as a group, the more we spoke to each other, that especially on Instagram and having growth on Instagram, people want to know about what you're doing right now, not what you were doing last year, not what you were doing 2 years ago. They want to know what's working for you and working for your clients right now. Because there's so many things that come and go. There's so many diet fads. There's so many business fads. They want to know what's making you money right now. What's making your clients see success right now? What's making, what's the newest thing within weight loss for your clients that's really been helping? What is the hack that's really been helping your clients gain the success that they want to gain? And so really speaking about experiences that are very recent is something that is very up and coming. It's something that's happening, or something that is being encouraged more and more and more within the online space. And it was really interesting to discuss back and forth about how many of us also experienced that exact same thing in terms of the accounts that we were drawn to, right? So the things that you've been doing in your business for 5 years, for 2 years, for even 1 year, it's time to upcycle your content. It's time to do a slight rebrand in everything that you're doing, especially if you've been around for a while, and start to understand, what are the things that that people this year and this month really need to know from you that are going to be different than things that you've shared before. So I totally understand the value of repurposing, and I do that all the time. But this was really interesting because it could even be a bit of repurposing that you do with your content, but you want to make it very recent. You want to have the up and coming thing within your industry that everyone's talking about that really helps to drive traffic and engagement. Okay. So that was number 2. Number 3. So the third big thing that I learned from this experience is everyone who is doing really, really well seemed to have some sort of a business partner. And to me, that was just so interesting. And it really blew a light bulb on for me in my head, because I have always had team, but I haven't necessarily had a business partner. I haven't necessarily had someone who had stake in my company. And as I thought about that, and as I thought about all of the different roles that I have within my company and all of the different hats that I wear, I started to realize that some of the hats that I wear personally aren't hats that I need to be wearing. And it really opened up a lot of expansion for me in terms of thinking about the future and thinking about who I want as a partner to come on to do a lot of the things in my business that I might be good at, but that don't actually require me to be doing. And I tell this to my clients all the time, even for my clients who are in my rapid expansion method, which is beginner to intermediate coaches, is even if you have one team member that helps you so much, but as you grow and scale your business, you start to realize that you really don't need to be in every area and every aspect of what you're doing. And so that was a really fun, interesting realization for me. It's hey, if I want to get there, if I want to do the things that I feel all of these really inspiring people are doing, I'm realizing that they have business partners and they have people who are working in their business that share revenue. And it's also another person who has their back. So you don't feel as solo. And so I've hired mentors, business coaches, and that really helps with the feeling of isolation and loneliness. But that business partnership was something where I was for people who are at 7 figures and above, that seems to be what they're all doing. Now, the fourth really amazing goodness that I experienced while I was in this meetup, this mastermind meetup that we did, is there's still a lot of scarcity identity that I have been clinging to, that I see that some of my friends who are also in business are no longer clinging to themselves. And what I mean by this is I come from a very 9 to 5 type mentality and 9 to 5 type of family where I was raised on specific aspects of money scarcity. So, like money isn't something that is widely available to everyone. We always have to be really cheap with our money. And, like we can't spend frivolously, which, I need to say here that that's a really great mentality to have, but it needs to be balanced, right? And so when you grow up in a really money scarce family with ancestral money traumas where people are just struggling to survive, and then you try to go in and adopt a different mindset in entrepreneurship, one big thing that I realized is that kind of constantly crept up on me, keeps on creeping up on me no matter how much money I make. It just keeps on creeping in. It's just this little thing that's inside of me because it's the way that I was raised. And so what I realized is that it's not actually necessary for my survival. And I know that might sound like something that is so simple, but if any of you know exactly what I'm talking about, because you've probably grown through it yourself, you know that it's not that simple to get rid of it. And so as I thought that I was getting rid of it and that I was really growing from it, I found that being surrounded by a really successful group of women made me realize that there were still some parts of that identity that I was hanging on to that were actually dampening my growth. They weren't allowing me to grow as quickly as I wanted to. And I think one of the best things about being around other people who are also successful is seeing what habits they all have in common and seeing how that compares to the habits that you are still holding on to. And while I used to hold on to the whole money saving and budgeting as a badge of honor, I now understand that part of that is really a crutch. And it really is a crutch of me staying in the same place. And it's not allowing me to grow as effectively as I would want to and as effectively as I would need to in order to create the impact that I really want to create in the world. And so by really looking at that and just noticing that, that so many of my friends who are in these really amazing places in their lives don't have that, don't subscribe to those mentalities, and don't choose to subscribe to those identities and those mentalities, made me think, well, why am I still hanging on to this? Why am I still getting really stressed out about these things internally? I don't have to. It's not necessary for me to experience that. And what I find really fascinating about all of the ladies that I met and all of the ladies that I surround myself with is that we all come from such different walks of life. There are minorities in the group. There are women who've had entrepreneurs as parents in the group. There are women who haven't had any entrepreneurs in their families in the group. There are women who have gone on to make 7 figures. There are women who are in the multiple 6-figure range. There are women who share businesses with their partners. There are women who don't share businesses with their partners and don't want their partners to be involved in their businesses at all. And it really shows that literally anyone can do this. Anyone can grow their business. Anyone can scale their business to multiple 6 figures, 7 figures, and even multiple 7 figures. And, there's room at the table for all of us. And I'm just going to really anchor that down for you. Think about that. There's room at the table for you. I really want you to know that. There are so many amazing women out there who are constantly discrediting themselves because of the fact that they might not know a lot about business, or they might come from a money scarce family like me, or they might come from a minority, or they just might think that they're not good enough because they lack something that they think that they need. And I'm here to tell you that the group of women who I had the privilege of spending a week with, they're all different walks of life, all different even levels of intelligence, levels of IQ, all different races. The only thing that we really all had in common was we were all entrepreneurs, and we all desired to make a really big impact in the world primarily through coaching, which is how we all met. And really looking at all of that just makes me feel like, oh, all of these things that I experience on a daily basis, these are normal. These are normal things that I am experiencing. It is so helpful to be surrounded by a group of people who get what it is that you're going through, which is why even in my one-to-one coaching programs, I always include groups, because it's so helpful to hear and experience from the larger group as a whole. And, last but not least, really going through that same thread, one of the biggest things that I learned is that everyone has their own crap that they deal with. Even people who are making $1 million a year. Okay. Even people who are making $1 million a year. And the most important part of that, and I know that this is really going to identify with my people pleasers and my empaths, is everyone had bad experiences with other people. So I heard stories of either having really bad business partners or having really bad team members that didn't really go well, having a team member who hated them, right? Like I had some of my friends talk about experiences with team members who went and like tried to make derogatory statements about them and their company, or, like really horrible clients who really didn't care about them, clients who just wanted all of the work done for them. There are so many instances where we come up against that and we're just like, is this me? Right? Like, did I do this? Am I a part of this problem? And yes, there's always room to look inwards. And there's always room to think about what could I have done differently in the situation to have produced a different outcome. But at the same time, it really does come with this territory as a successful woman that other people are going to be threatened by your success. And so one big thing that I realized, especially as someone who's been a recovering people pleaser and an empath, is that you really can't get around that, because at the end of the day, all of those problems and all of those projections that other people create on you and project on you really don't have much to do with you, and they have everything to do with them. And so oftentimes when we get into some sort of altercation, be it with a client, be it with a team member, we often think like, oh, well, there's definitely something wrong with me because, so-and-so is online and they have this really awesome brand. They're probably so good at their job, or they're probably so good at handling their team, or they're probably so good at their communication that no one would even think about, burning them, or no one would even think about not paying them, or no one would even think about talking badly about them. And what I realized is that the more successful you are, the more haters you get. And it's interesting because you hear that from people all the time, but to actually discuss that with other successful women in real life, that's really when I started to understand that, wow, we're not only all the same, but we all go through really similar experiences. And even as I learned all of these things and, understanding these women's characters, these women who I've known literally for years now that we just decided to do this meetup with, I can definitely attest to the fact that they have a high caliber of character. And so for them to be attacked, I'm like, okay. So if they're attacked by certain people, or if they're attacked by certain team members, or if they had, like this really bad situation with a client, that means that this is just something that comes along with the territory. And mind you, this doesn't happen very often, right? It's like 1% of the time. But when you're a people pleaser, or when you're an empath, that's like, it's a very big impact. That creates a very big impact in your life, right? Because you're like, well, what did I do wrong, right? How could I have made that situation better? And I think one of the things that I learned is it's not that you get better at handling people and handling communication, although you do. What ends up happening when you become more successful is you actually end up drawing stronger boundaries that some people just don't want to or aren't willing to abide by. And that's what happens when you put one really mature person up against someone who's very immature with their emotions and with their success. And that was a really good reminder for me. It was a really good reminder that we all go through this, that we are all inevitably going to have someone who does not feel 100% satisfied with our presence and with our company and with the type of business that we run, because we can't please everyone. And seeing other really amazing, kind-hearted women talk about their experiences through that really helped me to realize that we're all going through it together. And how beautiful is it to have a group of successful people come together and really talk about all of these things? So those are my top 5 things that I really learned from being around really successful women for a week straight. And Like I said, most of these are internal. Most of these are just noticing how these women act and behave and just realizing, how much I wasn't fully embracing the success that I had created for myself as well, and really helping me to give myself permission to step into a new identity. But another thing that I feel like was so privileged about what we were able to do is the fact that 3 of us were moms. 3 of us were moms of very small children. So one of my friends had a 4-month-old, the other one had a 3-year-old, and I had a 4-year-old. And all of the children were with their dads. And we had the luxury of spending multiple days together, just talking about business and talking about life in the middle of the week in Santa Monica, in really nice hotels, having really great food. And I remember just looking at them and saying, what a privilege this is. We're all in our mid-30s, early 40s, and we can do this with each other. How many other women can do this? And I think this really speaks to the type of freedom that you can create for yourself and for your family when you grow and scale a business online. And that is something that we all had the privilege of doing, that we all heavily invested into because we all met each other through a group coaching program that we had invested into. That wasn't cheap, right? But it was all worth it because at the end of the day, why did we all go into business? Probably to do things like exactly what we did that week in LA. All right. So I want you to think about that for a moment too, and just ask yourself, what type of privilege do I want to be able to have in the future? And how am I working for that privilege today? All right. I'm going to leave you with that just because this is something that I'd only had dreamt of for years, and I finally got to experience it. And it's just the most expansive, beautiful feeling. And I truly hope and wish that each and every one of you can get to experience that as well. All right. So I'm going to end here. Thank you so much for listening. If you liked this episode, feel free to subscribe, leave a comment. And if you feel like someone needs to hear this episode today, please share it with them. I feel like there are a lot of really, really good nuggets of wisdom in here that I feel like so many of you can relate to, and hopefully your friends can too. All right. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Uplevel Your Online Business Show. If you enjoy our show and would like the show notes and free goodies about how to grow your online coaching business, head over to sarahjlorero.com for more information. We hope you'll tune in next time.